Hey there, how's it going? There's been a lot of commotion since the new tax reform bills were announced a couple of months ago, with so many people confused and uncertain about what to expect as from January 2026. So, to help us clear this confusion, I hopped on a quick call with a dear friend of mine who was kind enough to help us simplify everything we need to know about these new tax bills. Joy Aggie is a chartered accountant who combines her technical expertise with a passion for financial literacy among young Nigerians through her platform. Let's Talk Finance with Joy. So, listen up, pay attention, and drop any questions you might have in the comment sections. See you on the next one.
So
Yeah.
it's awesome that you help us put things into perspective and help people get a firm grasp of these tax reforms, the tax laws in general. So thank you so much once again.
You're
And
welcome.
let us dive in. Okay. So this is going to be very, very, very short.
Okay.
And yeah, shall I straight to the point. And if other people have questions, they're able to drop comments and ask.
All right.
And yeah, we'll be able to just respond further. So, pretty much, let's just start with the basics.
Okay.
What exactly is tax and why do we have to pay?
Why do we have to pay taxes? Okay,
I
so
didn't get that.
yeah, what are taxes and why do we have to pay taxes? So, simply put, taxes are one of the forms of revenue or income. Let me not use any technical jargon now. Taxes are like one of the forms or streams of income for the government. So, the government doesn't run any business, right? How exactly is it supposed to, get money to develop infrastructures, put things into place for the citizens? It does several things, but taxes is definitely one of the ways that the government gets money. And why do we pay taxes? In a sane climate or a sane economy or country, your taxes are basically part of what the government uses to fund infrastructural development, building of hospitals, construction of roads, bridges, working on technology, whatever needs to be put into place to make the lives of the citizens better, right? Your taxes come into play. Like when you pay your taxes, they use those monies to work on all of those things. So yeah, that's basically what taxes are and why we have to pay taxes.
There has been a lot of confusion since the tax reforms were announced. Um, can you tell us why that is the case? Why do you think it's just been something, a sort of panic among people?
Okay, so well, I'll start by saying that the new person in charge of taxes, right? That's Taiwo Yedele. He's someone that is very well known. Okay, let me say with the finance and the finance and big four guys, like he's very well versatile with taxes. He's a tax man basically, right? And he's the one that Tinubu has put in charge of taxes. So definitely I had a feeling he was going to come for our next, quote and unquote. But yeah, taxes are actually not new. Like I said, it's one of the ways that the government gets income. So it's not a new thing. However, there are a lot of changes going on and they are basically happening almost all at the same time. So recently there has been a withholding tax implemented on short-term investment. There is now capital gains tax on assets or like stock investments. So a lot of new things are coming up, and because they are coming up all at once, I think that's the reason why there is a lot of confusion. And also because I would say Nigeria isn't a country where a lot of people pay taxes like directly. Now I understand that people in paid employment have to pay taxes because I mean there is no escaping it. Your employer has to pay taxes, but there are a lot of people in who are entrepreneurs and maybe have not had the reason to leave the country or things that they would have to ask for tax certificates and stuff like that. A lot of people actually don't pay taxes, right? A lot of individuals in Nigeria have not paid. In fact, I heard it was this week, right? This week there is an information came up that that they are going to work with a number of companies to ensure that remote workers and freelancers are now taxed. I think I saw that information yesterday or 2 days ago, right? So a lot of those guys too have not, or we are not previously paying taxes, right? So that's why it seems like, oh, what's going on in Nigeria? Why does it seem like suddenly we are telling us to pay taxes? So no, taxes are not new, but because I would say maybe there isn't much enlightenment. The most some people know about taxes are VAT, right? So if you go to a supermarket to buy stuff and you actually take a look at your receipt, you would see something called VAT, value added tax, which is already imputed. So, unlike systems abroad where you have to remit those taxes yourself, it's already imputed in the cost of what you've purchased. So, some people even look at it and they don't even understand what it's about. So, yeah, I think that's the reason everything is coming up all at once. And also, I would say a lot of people aren't really enlightened about taxes. That's why people are really confused about it.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That totally does make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And you mentioned like people are going to be paying their taxes before now. Things like this, people not paying their taxes before now. Is that something? Is that a lapse on the part of the FIRS, sorry, the
Tax
tax agencies?
authorities.
Is that a lapse on their part before now that people are able to get away without paying taxes?
I think because Nigeria also hasn't really gotten to that point of integrating everything. So, what do I mean? Our technology is not yet up to par. So I know that there's a lot of work about or around connecting people's NIN, BVN, getting a unique identifier, and then trying to enforce certain things. But I think because those things haven't been fully implemented yet, that's probably why getting every single individual that should be taxable to pay tax has been a hassle in Nigeria. I would say that's probably why. So, for instance, there are people who are getting rental income and they are they are not paying tax on their rental income. They might be paying from one source, they might not be paying from another source. Or let's even use an average 9 to 5er who has a side gig or a side job, right? You have a maybe you haven't even registered it or you have registered this business. How many people actually pay taxes on those businesses that they have on the side? So if we really think about it, yes, there is definitely a part that the tax authorities have to play when it comes to trying to integrate and enforce these things.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much. And a quick one, in terms of the percentage of taxes that people are expected to pay. From the data I saw ranging from about 18% to 25%. Do you think that is excessive, or is that an average amount of tax that we should be paying given the economy and everything like that?
Okay, so let me put it this way. So there are different forms of taxes, right? Okay, let me answer it this way. And this is my personal view, and I think a lot of Nigerians would actually hold the same position. If we are in a country where we see how our monies are being used to better the economy, I doubt if people would really have an issue paying a lot of money as taxes, right? If we look at countries or economies that actually work, people are taxed heavily. Like, people are actually taxed heavily. If we go and do the research, people are taxed heavily in a lot of these countries that are functional. So the problem really isn't about how much is being charged as tax, it is how these monies are being used. So are we getting value for our money, basically? Right, a lot of people may not really have issues paying money, but are they getting the value for that money? So maybe that's the conversation we want to have. However, I actually think some taxes are high, right? But is there anything we can do about it? So I know growing up, VAT was less than 5%, and then it increased to 5%, and it's currently 7.5%. Withholding tax has changed. There is no capital gains tax. There is there is the regular pay that paid employees get to make. So there are different forms of taxes, but I think the real conversation is or should be around how these monies are being used. I think the taxes are actually a lot. If I'm going to be very honest and speak from my view, I think the taxes are a lot. But I also feel like if people are seeing how these monies are being used and things are being put in place, then it might not be so much of a conversation. We would be like, okay, well, the country is working. If I go to the hospital, healthcare is accessible, easily accessible, the roads are fine, everything makes sense. So you might be just be like,
Yeah.
okay, no wala, it's fine, it works.
And that brings me to the question of being overtaxed.
Okay.
Because a lot of people argue that they already pay taxes indirectly when they purchase goods, when they visit entertainment centers, and things like that. So like consumption tax, VAT, and the rest of that. Um, does that mean we are being overtaxed? Like if I pay indirect tax like VAT and the rest of them, why do I still need to pay 18% of my income?
Like you said, these are different forms of taxes. Your personal income tax is different from a consumption tax, right? However, I know what is applicable in the corporate space, is that there is something called withholding tax. So what is withholding tax? Let's say I am a company, I buy or I purchase furniture from Ibrahim and Sons Furniture, right? I withhold a particular amount of that money and then remit it on behalf of Ibrahim Furniture and Sons to the tax authority. Now, when Ibrahim Furniture and Sons, I mean Ibrahim and Sons Furniture wants to pay his tax, he gets a form of tax credit from the government using that withholding tax, right? So I know that happens in the corporate space or in the corporate climb, but I don't really know how the government now intends to um bring it down to the individual, or at the individual level, because I know now they are implementing things around withholding tax, capital gains tax. There is even something about rental income and getting back a percentage of your rent. There are all of those things, but I'm not very certain how the government would want to implement individuals getting a form of tax credit. So while I know that people have to pay different forms of taxes, I think in the near future we might actually be able to get, as individuals now, we might actually be able to get some form of tax credit from the government. So maybe that would be now be used to reduce your personal income tax. But I'm not certain if there is any what's the word now? If there is any direct or straight out cut through plan as it relates to that. But I think there's something I actually think that's something that would be in the works with the tax authorities. So I feel like there should be some form of tax credits available for individuals in the nearest future.
So at this point, you would say we are being overtaxed.
Well, well, if you put it that way, if you put it that way,
And the truth is, we know that anything like tax reforms and things like that, that will be the last thing. I'm sure they don't even have it in their plans. That one, I know my people.
well, I can't say because I don't have facts to back it up, so I can't say whether. But I actually think that there would be. So the reason why I think that there would be conversations around that is okay. So in the investment space, people are putting out monies to invest, which is a way that they are trying to boost the economy. So if you're I spoke about withholding tax, 10% withholding tax on short-term investments. If you're removing that before paying people their interest or whatever, and they don't get any form of tax credits, you're basically going to be shooting yourself in the foot, because you would sort of it would discourage investment, right? If I am paying withholding tax and I'm not getting a form of tax credit, then it doesn't pay me as an investor to put my money into something that would, at the end of the day, serve as a way to boost the economy. So the government would not be helping in any way if it doesn't come up with some forms of tax credit for individuals. So that's why I actually feel like it would definitely be somewhere in the plan, right? That's what, because it's going to now affect the entire economy, like in a very negative way, and I'm very certain they don't want that.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and I hope it works that way.
I hope so too. I really hope so. I really hope so.
Yeah. But then, okay, let's moving on. Um, another key question that has been on a lot of people's mind
Okay.
is about, since this whole thing is starting in January, will those people who have not been paying their taxes be made to pay back taxes from January, or will they officially start being held accountable from January?
It's going forward. It's on a going forward basis, and let me sort of shed more light into that. So there is the capital gains tax that I spoke about earlier, right? That is increasing from 10% to 30%. And in the past couple of weeks, it's sort of, so the Nigerian stock market felt a hit, right? A lot of people are trying to sell off their stocks because of this whole capital gains, because they thought that if you get into January, gains that you've made this past year would be taxed, right? Like 30% would be charged on your gains. So because of that, people were panic selling. They are like, no, let government not come and charge me 30%. However, there was now a sort of clarity. The tax guys came out and they cleared the air that it would be things that it will basically just take effect from the 1st of January. So any tax law coming in is with effect from 1st of January. The capital gains tax, if you buy stocks from the 1st of January 2026, that is when it's going to be in effect. Whatever you bought in 2025 is not going to be taxed at that rate, or whatever gain you made in 2025 will not be taxed at that rate. So that now sort of stays stabilizing the stock market and all of that. So, yeah, to answer your question, it would take effect, whatever is coming in, whatever tax reforms would take effect from the 1st of January. There would be no form of back trying to charge people based on previous incomes and stuff like that.
All the remote workers, all the sole proprietors, nobody's going to come after them for money they've been making the past 10 years.
Hopefully, I mean, except, well, there are peculiar situations, right? But I'm just saying generally, it's whatever is going to take effect is going to take effect from the 1st of January 2026. There might be a few exceptions.
All right, so the question was for sole proprietors,
Okay.
vendors, influencers, and others who are not salaried employees. How will they organize their books so they don't get overtaxed?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really important question. So you've already answered itself. You have to organize your books. There is no escaping that. There is no avoiding that, because your taxes should be on profit. But if you don't have anything to show the tax guys, um, as a way to, as evidence or as a form of defense to say, oh, this is what I actually made in profits, right? Then they would charge you based on whatever they come up with. So you need to organize your books, have records of your incomes, your expenses, um, bank statements. Just if you need to get an accountant, yeah, or somebody to help you, pay for that service. Don't try to save money or cut cost and then be charged a ridiculous amount for tax, right? So if you need to get an accountant to put your books in orders, put your affairs in orders. Please do. However, just keep basic records, your incomes. Have something just clicked. Have a specific bank account for your business. Now, I know that it sounds like common sense. However, there are a lot of people who mix their personal finances with their business finances, and it's going to be messy. So have a separate account for your business or separate accounts for your businesses where you can easily track things. If possible, have narration. So personally, and I'm not even running a business per se, right? When I'm transferring money. So today I went to the market, right? I paid for tomatoes and pepper and stuff. In the narration, I put tomatoes. I paid for this. So all those things help you, because when you're trying to, if you're trying to use your bank statements to, put your books together, you need to be able to, you will not remember. If I'm going back to August to, put my books together, I definitely will not remember every single detail of those transactions. So even when you're making transfers or stuff, a simple narration would provide the clarity you would most likely need in a couple of months. So you can do that when making transfers. Just ensure that you have a specific bank account for your business or bank accounts for your businesses. Also, get your customers to make use of that bank account. Don't mix your personal finances with your business finances. Record your incomes, your expenses, keep those receipts. So when you make specific purchases, you make sales, have records of those receipts. They will come in very, very useful. Like, you would not even believe it. They will come in very useful, because when these tax guys come also to, do their investigations and findings, they also want to see evidence and forms that you're not cooking up numbers for them, right? So you need all those things to have, or to have as a form of evidence. So basically, get a specific bank, um keep information about your incomes and your expenses, and get an accountant if need be. Don't try to save money on getting professional help and then you end up paying the tax guy three times what you would have paid.
I think that makes so much sense. That makes so much sense. And my next question was going to be, how do I stop cash gift for friends and family from getting taxed? But you've already answered it, by telling us to have a specific bank account for business. But
Yeah.
in a case where someone doesn't know and then they just have one account, business, personal.
Okay.
So what happens to them then? Do they just get whatever money comes from friends, family,
Hmm.
loans, all of them will be taxed? Is that the case?
That was going to be tricky, oh, honestly. And that's why I also said, but you don't really have control over that, right? But that was why I also mentioned using narrations in your bank transactions. Because I mean, if some honestly, the best way would just be to have separate or maintain separate accounts, right? Because how do you now want to defend it to the tax guy to say this money is from a family member? I don't know. I can't think of a way to defend that. So it would be best to maintain separate accounts. But normally, gifts are not even something that should be taxed. But how do you defend it in that situation? So it's preferable to maintain separate accounts. Or maybe have them put it in their narration. But do you want to start telling your helper to be putting narration when sending you money? I mean, that would just sound ridiculous.
Definitely, definitely. And another thing is, for people, there will be other people who try to avoid paying taxes. So, what's stopping me from putting a business expense, like I'm sorry, business income, as a freelancer? Somebody wants to pay for my services. What's stopping
Okay.
me from telling them to send it to my personal account?
So the interesting thing about this, the way these tax guys are going, I don't think there's going to be a way to really avoid it, because we have BVN, which is a unique identifier and is practically linked to almost everything you have now. So how do you want to escape it? Like, the CBN works hand in hand. Like, the CBN a form of government institution, there is going to be a lot of liaising and integrating of things. So, off the top of my head, like I know that there are ways to work around these things, but how exactly do you want to do it? And another thing that one of the new things that came up is if you make, I can't remember the threshold now, but let's say people who are in paid employment, right? You have side businesses and then you end up to, I think it's 800,000 naira per annum. I don't recall the exact amount. Like you have to come and declare it to the government. And if you don't now declare and they find out, the money you will pay is going to be a lot. You're gonna regret it. So, which is why I say that I don't really, it's better to just do the right thing. Honestly, I don't like, personally, I don't even like to cut through corners. So why do you want to go through that stress and maybe get caught in the process and you now get to pay money through your neck? Just do the right thing. There are definitely legal ways to, so you're not evading tax, you're avoiding tax. There are ways to find loopholes and actually legally avoid taxes, but don't do the wrong thing and then get caught and pay through your nose. So, but really, I think there would be a lot of integrations. So I don't really know how people would go about trying to evade taxes. I don't know. I don't have a criminal mind, so I haven't thought about that. I haven't actually thought about that.
I believe you 100%. And so finally, the final
Okay.
question here. Now in my opinion, I think you've answered it already. But Nigerians like how do I put it, shortcuts. They just want a quick step-by-step guide on what to do when they're confused. So right now,
Okay.
for just a minute, can you just tell us, like, for those who will be paying taxes for the first time, what steps should they take to have their affairs in
I
order?
would give you a few things. So definitely get a specific account for your business. Get a form of tax identification. So if it's a corporate, like a company kind of business, get your tax identification number. If you're a sole proprietor, get your taxpayer ID. You have to get that right. You definitely have to get that. Get an accountant if need be, or better still, just have a way you record your income, expenses. Get some form of accounting software or something that makes your life easier. Your books definitely have to be in order. So I think those are the three things I would share. Get a bank, a specific bank for your business. Get your form of tax identification, whether it's a tax identification number or a taxpayer ID. Then put your books and your house and your orders, I be your affairs in order. Ensure that your books are
Yes.
tidy. So yeah, those are the three things I would share relating to that question.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. And
You're welcome.
talking about tax ID, CIN, tax identification number, that was also something that caused so much confusion. A lot of people don't have it. A lot of people, and I know things saying, oh, if you don't have a LLC, you don't need a tax ID. If you don't this, I've seen a lot of talk about it online. And so this tax identification number, is it for every single person?
So tax identification numbers are for, in my understanding, they are for like corporate organizations, right? So individuals like you and I would have taxpayer ID. So all in all, Sha, they are all forms of tax identification. So companies are the ones, or registered businesses now are the ones that would have tax identification number. But if it's, let's say you're a sole proprietor, your business is registered under your name, your business is not a separate legal entity from you, then you would work with your taxpayer ID. So as an individual, I have a taxpayer ID. But if I start up a company and register it as, let's say, Joy and Co. Fashion, blah 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 blah, that entity, I can decide to go and get a tax identification number for that entity, because legally that entity is different from Joy Aggie, right? So, tax identification numbers for entities, taxpayer IDs for individuals.
It's perfect. Thank you so much.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
for giving a firm grasp of the tax laws and reforms.
I'm
And
glad I could
I'm
provide
sure
some
in
clarity.
case I'm sure if people have more questions, they'll definitely leave comments and be in the comments also to help us answer more questions. But thank
All
you so
right.
much for your time.
You're
And the
welcome
expertise. My brain seems
to have absorbed information.
like it's really this conversation we just had has put things into perspective, made it simple, and that is one thing I always try to do, help people understand complex things.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much, and yeah, thank you for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.